Say, I'm in your hands.
All right. Today is July the 10th, 2009, and with Carrie Daniels of the University of Louisville. I'm Troy Lovett, and we're in the home of Jim Miller, and this is our 9th session with the great man. And we want to primarily talk today, and as many more sessions as we need, for about a member of the greatest generation and his experiences in World War II. This has always been a subject that's been very reluctant to be talked about by those who survived the war, but it's very important for the younger generation and for us to touch as many of those lives as possible to get their stories. So we're going to be after Jim here for the next couple of sessions to see if he won't share with us some of his memories and recollections of that time. But before we do that, I wanted to ask Jim a couple of questions in relation to the contest that was held this past weekend. We in the Barbershop Society are accustomed to the first week in July of having our international convention. And we have talked in previous days about the fact that in 1978, in what I consider to be the kind of the peak of the society, that the Thoroughbreds and the vocal majority of Dallas met in Cincinnati in a historic contest that was won by the Thoroughbreds. The rest of that story, as I think Jim mentioned, was that from that time the vocal majority has never been defeated for 30 years and winning 10 championships in a row. Sitting out 2 years and competing. But that ended this past weekend, and I know that's a significant thing for Jim, and I'd like to begin today with asking him what his thoughts were about that. If I remember correctly, I think he kind of predicted that. So Jim, what's your recollection from this past weekend?
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understood what you just said a minute ago. Dallas, the vocal majority was defeated in 1974 by the Thoroughbreds, incidentally, and then they subsequently won next year in 1975. And then when they became eligible again in 1978, they were defeated again by the Thoroughbreds. And then after that, starting in 1979, they reeled off 11 straight championships, which is a feat that I don't know whether it'll ever be duplicated. Yeah. I mean, I've had my share of wins, but only 3 of them were ever consecutive. That was, it's just very difficult to do. But the Dallas vocal majority is a very, very unusual group. As far as this weekend is concerned, I have to give you kind of a I can't call it secondhand. We watched it live, but I was not at the convention. It's my first convention I've missed in 45 years. And but there were certain things that just did fall into place. And but we had the webcast on, and I was keeping pretty close tab with almost hourly telephone calls. Out of a possible 3,000 points, I may take it back down to percentiles. Out of a possible 100%, which a singing group can attain, the vocal majority had an average of 97.6 or something like that. Nobody's ever scored that high before, and they were beaten. So give you a little bit of an idea of the way things, how tight they were. In this particular contest, there just wasn't any question about it. There was the ambassadors from St. Charles, Missouri, and there was Dallas, and then there were the rest of the group. And that's just the way it turned about. There were fantastic scores. I'm not so sure whether or not the scores might have been a little bit, they might have been overscored a little bit. But it's relative, so it doesn't really make any difference. They broke a record in the number of points that you could get, and they were beaten by another group that came in and voted. They had the ambassadors had something like 98 percentile.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's an average score of 15 judges over 3 categories, as you know. And so the local group here from Elizabethtown had some of our local people with it. They sang better than they've ever sung before and lost a couple of places. But getting back to this particular contest is excuse me, the vocal majority sang first in the rotation. They sang first, and I mean, when I say that, just first before the ambassador sang. Can you?
Sure.
And
that's fantastic.
yeah. Anyway, getting back to this this particular contest, I think it's somewhere along the line. It's just a personal observation now that Dallas made, I think, possibly a little bit of a tactical error in their song selections. I think they weren't quite the strength that that maybe they should have had. They were fantastic, 97 point something percent.
Yeah.
Everything they sang. Georgia on My Mind and Sweet Georgia Brown, and they did a fantastic job, as the scores show. But I think they're just a little bit under the I don't know, this is just an impression I got. They weren't quite up to that, you know, that they maybe could have done a little bit better in a song selection. Now that's strictly personal observation. I can't, who can argue with a 97.8 or something. And the ambassadors were just, it was just one of those things. They weren't going to be denied this time. And so it was 160, 70 guys on the stage. They came out and sang a ballad of If You Love Me, You Really Love Me, da-da-da, you know the song, so I can't think of the exact title. If You Love Me, I think.
That's it.
And of course it was almost like you'd call a concert arrangement of this thing. And then they did the second song was a takeoff on 76 trombones, but it went in all kinds of different directions. And here again, one of my points, I think this is a thing that bothers me about the society. These songs become over-arranged, you know, and they get to a point where it's not something you're trying to preserve, it's something, it's something new. And nobody can sing it except certain groups,
right.
you know.
Right.
But anyway, they did this thing, and they had a fantastic choreography package. They came out with, of course, all kinds of dancing going on in the front, and came out with a big curtain that passed across the stage, and when the curtain opened, and there came out the band, all in band uniforms. They had taken off their tuxedos, and there was about 8 or 10 of them then in bright band uniforms, and the rest of the chorus all then sported instruments, which I thought we were homemade wooden type things, you know, and they were good enough to win. But I think if I were going to do that, by golly, they had real instruments.
I think you did the real thing.
Yeah, and I told you the story of those, didn't I?
Yes, you did, but repeat it if you want to.
I mean, when we used the most 16 cornets we used were brand spanking new and never had a lip on them. I mean, and but anyway, like I said, they did win, and I don't think there was really any question, even though it was just a fraction. There's really no question about the fact that they actually beat the vocal majority, and I think that. What's going on? Sometimes changes made. Some of the administration changes what took place in the vocal majority last year. New people are coming into the vote majority all the time. Other people are going out all the time. It's the same old story. And it gets to a point where somewhere along the line you stumble a little bit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as manifest with them due to the stringent requirements they have, to come into the group. With us, we let anybody in. If you sing, if you carry a tune, well, you could come in. And so there were times where we'd stumble a little bit, drop back to second or third or something like that. But I'm going to wait probably until first of the week. I let this week go by, but the first of the week I'm going to call Jim up. He's one of my favorite people. He's a fantastic guy, professional musician, and makes his living producing and performing in jingles for radio consumption and sponsors. I mean for sponsors and for regular radio. Their call letters things. And that's what he does. And he's a great musician. But anyway, it was just one of those times. The situation, I was told that in that auditorium, it was just electric. I mean, everybody could sense what was actually taking place. It was electric. And nobody, including Jim, had any squawks about it.
I was sort of reminded, I believe it was 81, maybe 66 also, but at least 81, that I think you've described to us before and to me that the contest basically was over immediately. I mean, after the electricity that the Thoroughbreds presented, you said you felt it even. And I'm wondering if a similar thing happened in a way Saturday.
I'm sure it did. Actually, the feeling that I had was a feeling of exhilaration. It wasn't exactly that the contest was over in terms of winning it, but the fact that my personal goal is that we did the very, very best that we could possibly do, and that's the real kick. You do that when that happens, just like with Southern Gateway up there. They scored higher than they ever scored, and still came in 11th, and they had a score that would, back in our day, when our planning, if we could get an 85 all the way across the judging, the category spectrum, if we get 85 average across there, we'd beat you. And now, 85 didn't even get you in the top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Cincinnati had to feel good on that basis that I really believe they did as good as they could do, as did the Kentucky Vocal Union. I think they did as good as they could do. And
so, what do you see in terms of? Let's just say that Southern Gateway did as good as they could do. What do you tell the course after that? I mean, I understand you're not trying necessarily to win a gold medal. You're trying to do the best you can, and that's the way they'll take it. But what is the future if a course is wanting to be competitive today and has aspirations for winning a medal?
Well, Troy, I tell you the truth. I think that I'm deeply concerned about the society altogether. I think that the society is already in splinters right now, and that there's already other groups that are formed and meeting, and and having many conventions of their own. At least two groups. The part of the membership that were very it depended on the camaraderie and of the improvisational singing that we called woodshedding, that they had at chapter meetings, and that at conventions and everything like that, they are finally reached a point that some of the things we're doing now is just not available to the average guy. Mm-hmm. And my own personal regrets is that we are not in the preservation business anymore. I mean, we are trying to, we don't even have preservation in our name anymore. I mean, we're not preserving anything. What we have done, a new breed, we've always had, I'm bouncing around here, but we've always had, in the society, we've always had fine musicians. Sigmund Speth goes back into way back into the early years of this century, was a known musician everywhere. But he was very active in making barbershop music before there was such a thing as a society. And the guys that more contemporary that you would hear about Hicks, Bert Szabo, Jim Clancy. I can name you a dozen of them off him. Lou Perry, guys that I can name all these guys that were great musicians and everything, but they operated in the scope of preserving a style. And that style, and the thing by definition, when you're going to try to preserve something, by definition, you're saying that there has to be some parameters, there has to be some standards somewhere along the line. And we've got a new class of professionals who are great musicians and great technicians and everything like that, but they've created a thing all of their own. They've gone beyond preserving this style. They've created a new style of a tremendous a cappella singing, but it doesn't have anything at all to do with what we're trying to preserve. Exactly. And I don't adhere to the fact that everything ought to be "Let Me Call You Sweetheart" and "Down by the Old Mill Stream" done in whole notes, you know.
Sure.
And that, of course, that's the way the original style was. They didn't care anything about meter or rhythm or anything. Everything was the chord. I mean, how the chord sounded and whatever kind of manipulation they could do from get from one chord to another. And that was where the improvisational part of it came in. And the blame on the thing is the judging program has allowed this to happen. And not only allowed it to happen, they've embraced it.
Yeah.
And there's where the conflict is right now. I read things on that Harmonet that are that thesis about learned people. I mean, you can tell the way they're writing. These aren't dummies, and they all go back to one thing: we've allowed this new thing to come in, and it just hasn't worked out as far as preservation is concerned. Mm-hmm. And that's what really bothered me. We went there, we turned into merchandising and you know, that kind of thing. And I don't know anything, you know. As a matter of fact, I pretty much got to stay clear of any controversy. You know, I mean, I've worked for the society for 30 years, you know, on contract with my company. I want to talk to you about that too later on. Not here, but I mean about a separate thing. My company's been the convention photographer since 1978. Yeah. And that's a contract renewable every year. And it was important. Sure. to our company. And so I really can't get into any big heavy controversy. I mean, not from a prudent standpoint, I couldn't. I mean, I could say, oh, well, heck with everything, and throw caution to the winds, and what'll I prove? Yeah. And so, but it really is a big disappointment that we've gotten along those, to those lines. They don't really show anything at all in their name, in their public relations, And take a look at Thoroughbred Hall out there. I mean, you don't have anything on there on that sign about barbershop at all.
Exactly.
Alcapella's on there, male alcapella's on there, and everything like that.
Exactly.
But barbershop has almost become a stigma.
Yeah.
And it bothers me and, a lot of people.
Sure.
So I'm afraid the society is going to actually split. And I don't know when this will happen or anything like that, but it's already taken place.
Even in the time that I've seen such a change, and somebody said that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And I think the society has pretty well done that.
Just about right.
Anything that's dazzles, they've gone after.
Troy, what they did, I don't know whether this was just used as an excuse, but under the guise of appealing to the youth.
Yeah.
Is this where they came? Well, we got to give them something, young people something. This is the way we're going to progress, by getting to the young people. We're getting old, and this and that and the other thing. Well, I think that's true, but you look, the society has existed for 60 some odd years. And during that 60 years, we had to be getting some youthful people in.
Exactly.
Why, in 15 or 20 years ago, did it become all of a sudden necessary to pander to them?
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And so they did the one thing that make guys like me, and probably you, where we changed our music to pander to what we thought they wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
And the truth of the matter is that the kid nowadays, if he's got it in his belly, and here's one of those chords that sizzles and holla, he's gonna eat it up and like it, or he isn't.
Exactly.
And but giving him something else and calling it barbershop is just not good for anybody.
So it seems to me that if you got right down to the core of it, that the society stopped believing in itself.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Jim Clancy, I'm assuming, is going to ask you in so many words, what do I do? I've never been here before. I don't remember when I was here before. And I think something, Jim, that I sense, and I don't know whether you sense this or not, but I would say that the vocal majority is looking at the same scenario that the Thoroughbreds did 20 years ago, in that the threat to their deal is not from without, but from within, in that there could be 40 or 50 youngsters in the vocal majority that say, wait a minute, it's the fault of the music team or the fault of the director or the fault of the board that we're singing this way. Why don't we just go out and form our own little group under 30 and sing by ourselves, as did they in Westminster? I don't know that, but
what's to say that wouldn't happen?
Yeah.
I think that it's a very good possibility something like that would happen. As far as Clancy is concerned, I think he is well prepared for whatever might come, and I don't think that that's going to bother him or anything. I mean, they still will be the mother outfit, even if they do, just like out there on the West Coast. That's what's happened out there, as you just mentioned. When it comes time for the masters to compete again, they all come back to the master.
Yeah.
And of course, those of us that this is all kind of sits in the background right now because of the notoriety of the vocal majority and the ambassadors and everything. But the quartet is the queen of battle as far as most of us are concerned. And this situation with the choruses have really gotten some of the hackles up on some of the people. There's some good portion of people, they just want to do away with choral singing altogether. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that'll happen, but the quartet situation is pretty much gotten to be the same way. I mean, they're singing stuff that, at the AIC show, one of the best singing champions they've ever had from about 3 years ago, called Real Time. I mean, they came out and sang a set that was right out of freshman Beach Boys, you know. It was bebop and, you know, and here they were at the barbershop convention. I don't have a problem with that. Any group singing anything. But when you're at the barbershop convention and you ought to sing sing barbershop music. And that's why I got one group that were silver medalists, quartet silver medalists, and they call themselves Old School. You probably know about
I
it.
sure do.
Call themselves Old School, and all they do is sing old arrangements. They jazz them up a little bit, but and they're silver medalists, and they came out and just sang 6 Buffalo Bill, Confederate, Sun Tone songs, you know, and there's all kinds of things. One of the quartets parodies that are in comedic quartets have gotten very popular, and some of them are pretty good. And there was one group called Stormfront, and I'm not going to get into what their whole act was and everything, but part of one of them was that they were waving a flag, and they were actually trying to depict with the 4 of them that famous painting of Washington crossing the Delaware, you know, and they fashioned a flag out of a T-shirt, and they were there with this flag and everything, and of course then they whirled it around so the T-shirt playing around is all stretched out across like this, and there was a great big lyre, and you know the old trademark, the old logo, you know, with air in all its glory, and the place erupted.
Great.
You know, and so we're in big time turmoil right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to happen. The convention itself, I know the barbershop convention itself has gotten too busy. I mean, there isn't time for anything anymore. You start off with Monday and Tuesday with social events and tours and everything like that. But starting on Wednesday, you know, you have a quarterfinals will take all day long. 56 quartets start off at 11 o'clock in the morning and go to 4, and then start again at 7 and go to 11 or whatever. And that's a day gone. On Thursday on Thursday I think Thursday they have the semifinals, the top 20 quartets, and the AIC show, and in between meetings and all kinds of stuff. And on Friday is the chorus contest, 30 some odd choruses.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's a ploy to get people to the convention.
Sure,
I mean, you know, and and everybody knows it. But 30 courses, that's Friday shot to pieces. And in there somewhere, there's the AIC show, a World Harmony Jamboree show, a Harmony Foundation show, and all the other. There's not time really anymore. If you want to go to the whole convention, there's not time anymore to find you a little corner over by the elevator shafts and do a little tag singing with 3 other guys from Sweat Sox, Montana, and Cheyenne, Wyoming, and New York City. There just isn't time for that anymore. Your convention book costs you $150, which I guess is all right. Your hotel room's going to cost you $150, $175 a night. Your airplane fare is going to cost you $600-$700 if it's out there on the West Coast like it, and it's starting to tell. And now we're planning to go to the Midwinter this year. And the Midwinter, have you ever been to a Midwinter?
I never have. Never.
Well, it's a laid back version. They have probably the best show of everything on Friday. On Friday and Saturday night, they have a full blown show, and it has all the top 5 medalists. The champions and top 5 are all in these 2 shows. Friday night is the 3rd and 4th place, along with maybe a a course or something. The Saturday night show will have the champions on it, and in between time it's kind of laid back. Got a little time to do this and do that, and you know, fraternize a little bit, and so it's in Tampa this year. They do stupid things. Now last year, the midwinter was in Pasadena in January. The main convention in July was in Anaheim.
Yeah, 2 trips. Yeah.
2 things on the West Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
I just, I don't understand it. This year it's in Tampa, and we're going to really try to get to that.
Good.
And so I have deep concerns about the society. And while I'm retired and don't have anything to do with anything anymore, I mean, I'm still connected with the company in everybody's mind. And there's no sense in my going off and popping off my big mouth and have them come back on the 2 girls.
Sure.
Now, the 2 girls said, look, we don't care anymore. We're going to probably give it up ourselves. They've said that a couple of times. Then I might say something. But other than that, why?
Well,
but prudence will be a little bit more dominating.
Better part of valor.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you, Jim. That's I share your thoughts, and I think the youth, the rush to youth is dominating our whole society, and I'm not sure why that is and how to stop it.
It was okay with me, no matter what they do. I don't care what they do as long until they got to messing with the music. Yeah. When they got messing with the music, I mean, there was the heart and soul of everything. Now they changed it to what our goals are. Our goals aren't even the same anymore.
Yeah.
Now the goals are to sell T-shirts and records and everything out of the Harmony Marketplace.
Yeah.
And get everybody contribute $1,000 a year at the Harmony Foundation.
That's right.
And such as that. And in the meantime, going out and singing Surfer Girl on an international stage. It just doesn't add up.
I got you.
You see, just one last little thing. I guess it was the golden years when I first got into the thing. All the organizations were pretty well set, and most of the struggles were over with, and they were just into the business of having fun and singing good music. That was late 50s. And this chapter, when it formed up, was, you could not believe the camaraderie and the things. I mean, people just looked forward to it. It was the mainstay of almost everybody's social life. I mean, things that were the annual softball game between the leads and tenors against the basses and baritones. I mean, that was a blood game. And I still got, I don't have them up downstairs, but I still got the winning softballs, from all autographed and everything. The family things, going to the spring convention and the fall convention was the thing that you looked forward to, because you were going to be now with people that you knew them for years and years and years. You see them twice a year, and you go back and tell stories about that relationship that you had, with everything. It was just a fun time to be doing things and be singing and everything like that. Now it's all parochial. Everything is, the only thing I like about what goes on right now is that singing is pretty good. It's not barbershop singing anymore, but it is good musicianship. And I'll give them that. But I'd still like to get back to that little preservation idea. And a little idea, but I know 3 guys that I can run into them in Kokomo, Indiana, and bust a tag, and look forward to it. It's like some of the things that they did. I guess maybe I mentioned earlier that the feud kind of between Indianapolis and Louisville took place back in the 70s, and they thought they were going to beat us up there in Columbus, and they gave me a pony. Did I tell
that story? I'm not sure that if you haven't, I want to I want to hear it again.
Well, it was in 75 or 76 or something. 74. They really thought they had us. They thought for some reason they were going well, and thought they were going to beat us in the October convention. And so when the contests and everything were all over on Saturday night, a lot of times the Indianapolis party and the Louisville party would kind of merge, and as with others, and so they had this whole thing all planned out. They had it all. They thought we were going to beat us, and they didn't come even. I mean, we clobbered them, and but then they went ahead with the party and everything. And we got to their party. They had this special music that they sang and everything, and they come trotting and walking in with this. I think it was a 4 or 5 year old horse pony. And he was kind of he was a long way from a thoroughbred.
Well,
and so that was the significance of the thing. Is they turned the thoroughbred, the racehorse, into this little saddle pony, and so okay, fine. Everybody had to laugh and everything like that. The next morning, on Sunday morning, when we got up to go to bed, the people in the hotel wanted to know what I was going to do with that horse, and they did. They pounded that horse off on me. I was sitting up there with a horse there on a Sunday morning in Columbus, Indiana, with a live horse on my hands. And you remember Vance Senef?
I do.
Well, he and I guess were the only two left there, and we just were late getting out of there, and he had a trailer hitch on his car, and I found a trailer someplace. A closed van trailer someplace in Columbus, and rented that trailer and put that poor horse in that trailer, and we drive about 20 miles and then get that horse outside. They take him out. It took us about 4 or 5 hours to get home because we were stopping there every 20 miles to let that horse out and walk. I didn't know what was going to happen to that poor thing, and I got the horse home. And I knew if I could get him home, that I could do something with him, because my cousin had 6 acres out there on the Fisherville area out there in off of what's that road that goes out Fisherville Road? What's it? Well, anyway, blue. Yeah, I don't know. Runs out of J-Town on out to 60 somewhere. Anyway, he had 6 acres out there and kept horses. And I got the horse home and got it to him and gave it to him. I said, "You got a horse," and he had 3 or 4 kids, and they loved that horse, Yeah. And so the thing. Then when it all was all settled down and everything like that, I made no mention of it whatsoever. I mean, the horse just disappeared. There was no comment made on it. There wasn't anything said about it. There wasn't anything. So I had the last laugh afterwards, after all, But it was really, looking back on the thing, I really didn't appreciate it, because that wasn't a very nice thing to do.
No, absolutely not.
And but there was a lot of interplay like that, and yeah, I coached them. We used other things, there wasn't any, tried to help one another and everything like that. But the wives and the kids, our kids, our 2 girls were, like 5 and 9 years old, or from the time they were little bitty kids. I mean, they still got friendships that they, made back then. And it's all gone. Yeah. I mean, it's completely all gone. The thing that you guys did the other night going up to Cincinnati was a great thing. I mean, I saw some of the little guys, and they were mixing in right with those guys. Yes, back then, when it was all over.
Yeah.
I was pleased at how many guys stuck around.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice.
There was a good,
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can ever get back to that. You don't know that you ever go back, but it was a great thing while it lasted.
Sure was, and I think that, again, the thoroughbreds were so instrumental in setting a tone for the society as to how courses are to be run and how they're to be managed.
Well, we were on the cutting edge of a lot of things.
You were.
Any question
You were.
about that?
You were, and a lot of that was goes right back to the philosophy that you all established, and other people imitated it. And
before you leave here today, I want to give you an old DVD. It's something that I told you I had, and you guard it with your life. I'm not giving it to you. I want it back. It's a CD of Dr. Appleman's valometer thing.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, wonderful. Yeah,
I found it, and
yes, we talked about
I
that.
think it's
Carrie.
up in that mess up there. I hope I can give it to
Okay.
you.
Yeah, we talked about that. That's wonderful. That'd be
Yeah.
wonderful. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut this tape down and
Okay.
put in a new tape so we don't mix these
Okay.
things up. That's right.